Good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins,
I'm Rich Carlson.
and we are the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening on Thanksgiving Eve. We are, of course, at our home studios. Neither one of us have traveled anywhere. Um, so, um, so I know that we've talked about it last week, Rich. You're gonna do Thanksgiving with your lovely wife, Rexy.
Yep.
Um, are you
Yeah,
guys
my,
gonna
my
do it?
girlfriend couldn't make it this year, so
Ah, shucks. So Rexy is gonna make the full spread, the
yep.
turkey and everything.
Yeah, we got turkey. We've got cranberries. We got a baked potato for me and yams for her because I can't stand yams. We got stuffing, beer, wine. What else do you have with Thanksgiving?
That
Uh,
sounds like a good variety right there of
yeah.
things. Does she do any like stuffing or anything like
Oh
that?
yeah,
Or
stuffing in the bird, the whole 9 yard, and homemade stuffing. So
nice.
she's a good cook, as you can tell. Um,
What
and
about? So it sounds like you're gonna have quite the spread, which is good.
yeah, and
What
it
about
also
the?
means I'm going to be eating turkey for the next 3 weeks. So
How about desserts? Anything on the dessert plate?
you know what? We skipped dessert this year because last year we bought cherry pie and a pumpkin pie because I don't like pumpkin. She doesn't like cherry. And we each had a slice and we ended up throwing most of those pies away. So we decided to skip the desserts this year. We have ice cream if we really want it.
Okay,
And we
so
have a
the
frozen fudge cake that we keep in the freezer anyway. So,
in case of emergency,
yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
so
a
the
cake emergency.
So the ice cream is pretty much the neutral dessert thing in your household.
Yeah, we both like ice cream, and it's going to be a nice day. So we might do some s'mores out in the patio later on if we want to. So,
That sounds good.
hmm
I'm not too sure what we're having for dinner. My dad dropped off for me last. What day was it? Thursday or Friday? So we heard the whole conversation that we had last week about, well, we're not doing their turkey and all
yeah.
this stuff. So he dropped off this roasted turkey breast, just the breast.
Oh,
So he dropped it off. So then we ended up having like a Thanksgiving dinner because of that on Sunday. So I
hmm
put it in the fridge and then we warmed it up. We had some of the fixins that you would normally have for Thanksgiving, but it was small fixins. It was like, we had most of the turkey breast for
Yeah.
dinner, and then I had it for lunch on Monday for work. So it
Yeah.
wasn't a tremendous amount of leftovers whatsoever.
You get those little boneless turkey breasts, they're about yay big, and they're just enough for two people and have some leftovers for the next day. And they're
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was really good. He picked it
Yeah.
up from one of the supermarkets. They'll roast it and do all that. So it was
Yeah.
already warmed up when he brought it. And
Oh, cool.
I'm like, all right, I'm gonna save this for Sunday. So I'm not too sure what we're doing tomorrow for Thanksgiving dinner, but we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. Our
Well,
daughter
so,
is actually still up at UVM, so she's gonna be
yeah.
up there until the spring, probably until she graduates at this point.
Yeah, at this point. Well, since all the rest of you guys are probably going to be stuck at in the house and not being able to go out and see a lot of family, and if the weather is conducive to it, might be a good time to do some work on your antennas before winter cuts in and cuts off access to the roof.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. I mean this is for a lot of us. This is a good time to be able to do things with antennas. In your case, the attic.
Yeah,
Finally it's cooled down up there. You're able
yeah.
to do some work up in the attic and not roast because you would literally during the summer months you would entirely roast.
I went up into the attic for an emergency antenna switch out in July or August one summer, and it was. I mean, I was up there for 5 minutes, and I was just totally drenched. It just, oh man, ugh. Yeah, and I do not go up in my attic if I don't absolutely have to. And when they replaced my air conditioner, not last summer, but the summer before, of course, it was August when the air conditioner went out, and there were three guys up in my attic all day long changing that out, and it was 118 degrees that day. So those guys earned their money.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you guys that are joining us this evening, well, thank you so much for spending Thanksgiving Eve with us. Some exciting news: Scanner Master will be open on Black Friday.
Yep.
We are sending an email blast tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I believe, is I haven't scheduled it as of yet. I still have to do a couple more edits on that. As you've probably seen, if you've signed up for the newsletter, we have free shipping, free ground shipping on all the digital scanners. We do have a couple of items that are on sale, nothing too extravagant. As we talked about in the past shows, there's some inventory shortages that we're still
Yeah.
dealing with, and this is a hard year to be able to do something spectacular regarding, like a big blowout sale. So, we try to do a couple of cool things. We've got some packages on our website, which you can save some money there over creating your own package. They're ready to go packages. We can definitely take a look at that later on this evening. What we're going to do is going to jump into a little bit of the slideshow. We're going to go into some of your questions. Of course, tonight's topic is basically fun with the scanner guys, also known as Ask the Scanner Guys. So this is where you basically take the conversation wherever you want it to go, scanner wise, and like we'll get a question, we'll read it. Rich and I will banter about it a little bit, and then we'll roll to the next question. So this is a different type of format that we typically do once a month. So let's take a look at the slideshow here. We also have some big news, which we're going to show in a couple of big news things that are in the slideshow this evening. We just want to remind you, as I was telling you earlier, if you want to learn about a lot of the ScannerMaster sales, sign up for our newsletter at scannermaster.com. That's scannermaster.com for the newsletter. Make sure you sign up there. We're always looking for your stupid scanner tricks and your shack photos. Send those along to us at our Gmail account, which is thescannerguys@gmail.com. That's thescannerguys@gmail.com. Keep in mind, if you have support questions, email those to support@scannermaster.com. This email address is not always monitored 24/7. Now, one of our big news stories, Universal Radio is closing. So Rich and I learned about this earlier in the week. They typically go to Dayton, one of the other scanner vendors that are out at Dayton.
Yeah, well, they're from Columbus area, Ohio, so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And it's unfortunate. Universal is a great shop, and if you've ever been there, you know that it's a great shop. Obviously, you can't go in there now with all the COVID nonsense, but back when you were still able to go out and do stuff, they had a great shop, a great selection of stuff. Yeah, they're a competitor for some stuff, but they were friendly competitors. And we always liked them, and they were always good to us, and we were always good to them. And if you like cats, you would love Universal because their shop had several shop cats, they call them. And and the cats were always real friendly with people walking in. So that got my wife happy when we were there, and she actually let me buy a radio because she thought the cats were cute.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember they had on their website, they had a page with all the various cats.
Yeah. So Fred has owned that thing for a long time. And,
I can tell you for years, for the last, what has it been? Probably like, decade. I've been entering, POs, which are purchase orders. Universal Radio would buy a couple of things from us, like our Spectrum Force antennas, some of the software, carrying cases. So yeah, we were competitors with them, but we work together. I mean, it's too bad to see one of what did Rich Barnett call us and them and a few of the other companies? What term did he use?
What, frenemies or something like that?
No,
I don't know.
The email that he sent out.
I don't remember. I don't pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we are the like the final.
Oh, the old guard. Yeah.
The old guard of scanners.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the last. One of the last of the old guard, other than us. So, I mean, there was Lentini. There was a couple shops in L.A. There was Durham and Lakeshore in Ontario, and there were a few others at
Scanner World.
Scanner World. Yeah, so there were a lot of places like that you used to be able to go into and see the stuff, or buy them online, or by mail order or phone back in the day. So, and it's pretty much just us. We're the only one left from that time frame.
All right. So as you can see, Rich and I are wearing our Scanner Guys t-shirts. You can still purchase those. We do have them available. But we have something super cool right now. And we have this as 9 days. This is available for the first production run of the Scanner Guys ball cap. You can check it out at our website, thescannerguys.weebly.com. It's right on the home page. And you can place an order for this. Where our goal is to sell 50 in 9 days. Yeah, that's our goal, is to sell 50 of these.
So if anybody wants to buy 49 of them, we'll be good.
Yeah. So maybe you've got the shirt, so now you get the hat, or you missed out on the shirt and you'd rather have the hat. So definitely purchase the Scanner Guys hat. If we ever have Dayton again, we'll have to work out some sort of thing. If you're in the hat and shirt,
you'll get something. Just to let you guys know, the guy on the left is me. The guy on the right is Jonathan.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, we are the same height.
And the same width.
Same everything. We're a lot slimmer on the hat, I gotta say.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So, like I say, I'm on the left, Jonathan's on the right. We were trying to put the names on it, but we ran out of room on the hats.
Yeah, so definitely place an order. It's available in black and also available in gray. So place your order now. We're trying to sell 50 of these in 9 days. So the first production run will go to production after the 9-day special closes. From what I understand, should be shipping out sometime on December the 15th. So what happens is orders get placed, then they go to production, and then they get shipped out. So definitely place your order for this. We would really appreciate it. It really helps us out to spread the word about the Scanner Guys.
Cool. Well, yeah, you'll like it. And when, like Jonathan said earlier, if we ever have another date and you wear the hat and the shirt, we will come up with a special for you.
Yeah, we definitely will. So I'm planning on, with any luck, I hope to be at Dayton along with Rich, so that'll be a good time. So definitely we're looking forward to that. We're not too sure if it'll happen in 2021, but if not, hopefully for 2022.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into a little bit of your frequently asked questions. I mean, these are typically things that we've been getting through emails, voicemails, phone calls, all the various ways that you reach Scanner Master, and these are some of the frequently asked questions. So let's dive into the next slide. So this is a gentleman that actually wrote us through, instead of emailing support at Scanner Master, he actually wrote us through the website, and he has a GRE PSR 600, and most of all of his police and fire and rescue are on Project 25 Phase 2. I'm able to hear some, but very little from these broadcasts because I've been told they've been encrypted. I also wonder if the SDS 100 or 200 would receive encrypted transmissions, or is there something I can upload to my GRE to receive them? Okay, so the first big thing with this, Rich, is the word encryption. Yeah. If they're running encryption, what does that mean?
Zip, you're out.
All right, so the next thing in there was upgrade from phase 1 to phase 2. Yet again, what's the answer to that?
Yeah, you cannot upgrade your existing phase 1 only scanner for phase 2. Now, there is a caveat there. Okay, not all phase 2 systems are truly operating in phase 2 mode or phase 2 mode all the time. So most phase 2 systems are what we call phase 2 capable. So they have a phase 2 capable operations. They are capable of being used in the phase 2 mode. But especially if it's an older system like Starcom or the Michigan or North Carolina systems, they are probably a phase 2 capable system, but they are operating in phase 1 mode because they would have to replace or reprogram or both all of the subscriber fleet radios, all of the base stations, all of the repeaters, all the control stations, and everything else. So even if it says it's a phase 2 system, take a look at the talk groups and see if the ones that you want to listen to are operating in phase 1 or phase 2. If they're operating in phase 1, indicated by a D instead of a T, then your older scanner would still work on them until such time as they actually do switch to phase 2.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. So there's that. The other question that was mixed in there is, kind of a response to it is checking radioreference.com. Like
Yep.
Rich said, T and D for those systems that are phased, that are phase 2 capable systems, that's going to be the tattletale thing to be able to see if the GRE PSR 600 is going to work. And also the other tattletale thing that's going to tell you, if you don't see that and you see an E, a capital E, that means full-time encryption. If you see a lowercase e, that means it's partial encryption. So
Right.
a lot of the questions for this particular post can be answered on Radio Reference, to be able to solve the mystery, what's going on with their system.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a key place to start. Any type of frequency questions, you want to go to Radio Reference and be able to kind of do some research there and see what's going on there.
Yeah, when we're working, we always have a browser open on Radio Reference. We're always watching, checking systems and doing that teching with customers. So you and I spend all day long on Radio Reference when we're working, and that's a fantastic resource for all kinds of radio information.
It certainly is. I mean, like if you don't know the answer, you can post the answer in the forums. I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge there. There's the wiki pages. Lindsay Blatton has done a phenomenal job with Radio Reference, just being able to make it what it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a typical question we get a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, the other question that goes along with this is a lot of people call us and say, can I listen to my home system with this scanner instead of this? Now, this guy obviously knows that they're phase 2, so, kudos to him. But we get a lot of people call and ask us if their local system's gone phase 2 or not. And what we'll do is number one, we'll tell them where they can find the information. And while we're telling them that, we're looking it up and figuring it out for them.
Quick question about the hats. They are adjustable. It says medium on the description. I'm not too sure what that pertains to, but it's an adjustable ball cap. So it has the adjustable back on that. I'm wondering if their quirky ordering system has got the quirkiness of ours and it needs something placed in that category. Rich and I, deal with a e-commerce site for Scanner Master, and sometimes it's quirky little things like that. They are adjustable. One size fits all.
Yep. Yeah, and they have that little plastic stripper thing on there. So.
Yeah, I just saw that question pop up. So let's take a look at another question. So AA writes, "Hi, I was planning on picking up a scanner for my home. Want to listen to police and commercial aviation frequencies primarily. What scanner would you recommend? I'm new to this. I want a good unit, but I also want something that will air need setup and to catch the frequencies. So I don't have to stay close to the airport.
You're right.
He's basically in a dense residential area. Well, the one thing that's missing from this, which is key when you email us, is where you are. That's going to be a deciding factor of what state, what county, and what city or town you're in. Because we can basically say in the email, if you want to monitor this, your local town, this is what you need. If you want to monitor the county level, this is what you need. And then for the state police or highway patrol, you may need this. And then aviation, of course, would probably be covered on any of those options that were available. A lot of times, let's say you're in Plymouth, Massachusetts, for example. Analog conventional scanner would work fine in Plymouth. But if you're looking to monitor the county level, there's some digital. The state police are running analog trunking in that area, eventually moving to digital, so you need a digital scanner. So if you are just interested in the town of Plymouth and monitoring aviation, you can go with a pretty basic scanner for the most part.
Yeah, it's again, you're right. It's the location. Now, when this particular question, he did not put a location, so I did respond back to him because we respond to all these questions individually as well. So I did respond to him. Yeah, check the radio reference database, and if you're not sure how to do that, let me know your location, and we'll check that for you. And like you said, any scanner that we sell, for the most part, will do aviation channels, and that also goes for marine channels and railroad channels. So if you're interested in those services, just about any scanner will do. So you want to, when you're looking for a particular scanner, you want to look at what's the most complicated system you're going to listen to, and the scanners will do just about everything else below that. So a digital scanner will do all of the analog stuff, and a digital phase 2 scanner will work on phase 1 and phase 2 and analog and aircraft. And then the higher tier scanners will do all of the below. So,
yeah, and that's the awesome thing about being able to answer questions. The more some of the information is key when trying to look for a scanner is location, location, location. That's going to indicate what level or what a level of complicated scanner you need. Like let's say if this gentleman did put in, all I want to hear is Plymouth Police and Fire. Then we would recommend a something like a analog conventional scanner. We'll jump into a couple of questions here, Rich. I see that Chris Schultz is asking about where to get his hands on a GRE PSR 500. There's a couple of places, eBay. There's also a really good right on radio reference. Classifieds. Any other places you would recommend, Rich?
Well, if he's looking for a PSR 500, get a WS1040 instead. It's basically exactly the same radio, but it's still currently, you can get it brand new. So if that particular radio is what you like and what you want, the WS1040 and the PSR 500 are effectively the exact same radio. The programming files work both ways. Same programming cable, same software, same accessories, everything.
And right now for this weekend, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag.
Yes.
So hold on one second. You guys are hearing it first.
I'm not even know. I think I know what he's talking about, but I'm not positive.
So hold on one second. I'm going to load up the page.
All right.
So, Chris, what you want to look at is, of course, shop around. I know you're probably looking to save some money.
Yeah.
But if the scanners are right around what the Whistler 1040's at price-wise, I would just go for the newer radio because, you might as well get something that's new, that's not used.
Has a warranty. We can program it for you before we send it out.
So, this is the Scanner Master website. As for this weekend only, it is on sale for $269.95. Now, granted that this radio only does phase 1 digital, doesn't do phase 2 digital, but if you're looking for something like the GRE PSR 500, this will do the job.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So now, remember, it is a phase 1 only scanner. Now, Chris lives in Michigan, and they use the Michigan State system, which is phase 1. But like Ron mentioned here, you might want to get a Uniden scanner or at least a phase 2 scanner. Eventually, Michigan is probably going to convert that system to phase 2, at least in some areas of the state. Now, whether or not they're going to do it in his particular area anytime soon, you don't know. Plus, if you're in a metro area that they're using simulcast, you might have better luck with an SDS. But if everything else all being equal, and that's the radio you want, you can get the WS1040 or its desktop equivalent, which is the WS1065.
And they're both on sale, same price, $269.95. And also the other thing is you're going to save about $20 on the radio. Plus, these two radios now have free shipping, free ground shipping. So think of it about $20. We're averaging ground shipping anywhere from $15 to $18 or even higher. So it's a bigger savings with the free shipping plus the $20 off. These are Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals that we're looking at right now. So you guys are learning about it before we send the email blast.
Yep, I didn't even know about it. I was going to get the email on Monday telling me that's what it was.
No,
so.
You're going to get the email tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. Hey, this is where it's going to be on Friday, yeah.
But yeah,
so I learned something today.
But yeah, that's what we're looking at right there. Yeah, I mean, Chris, with that system, and that's the common trend that we're seeing, Rich, with a lot of these phase 1 systems, it's a simple, as long as the radio fleet is capable, it's a simple upgrade, right?
Yeah.
From phase 1 to phase 2?
Yeah, depending on the mobile and portable radios they already have out in the field, going from phase 1 to phase 2 is just a programming update for the radios. And then depending on the age and type of infrastructure they have, the repeaters, the control stations, and the receivers and such, they may have to do some either firmware and programming updates or hardware updates. But going from phase 1 to phase 2 is a lot less expensive than rebuilding a new system. So, and it doubles your capacity. So I'm from Illinois originally, and we have the Starcom system, and it went from a phase 1 only system to phase 2 capable. And then in the Chicago area, and now I think in the Metro East area as well, they are starting to convert some users over to phase 2. And some of the suburban users in the Chicago area are already operating in phase 2 mode. So that's a mixed system. Some of the newer systems that are being put up now are phase 2 only and right from the get-go as well.
All right. Well, we'll dive into the slideshow again. We'll be going in and out of it throughout the evening. So let's take a look. So RP writes, just purchased another Home Patrol 2, and I'm trying to use the Extreme Update keys issued by Uniden from when I registered it on my previous Home Patrol 2. Why am I getting an error? Well, we know why.
Exactly
those
why.
Keys, as we mentioned many a times, are registered to one particular radio. So you can't carry it from one radio to the other.
Right.
It's all done by serial number.
Yeah, they are geared to the electronic serial number in the radio. And this is actually a very common question for us. We get a guy who says, yeah, I've got two 536s. Can I buy just one DMR key for both radios? Yeah, you can buy one for one radio and one for the other radio, but not one for both radios. So, and the other question we get a lot is people are saying, well, I'm putting in the serial number of my radio, but it's not taking it at the website to get the keys. There are two serial numbers on most unit and scanners, at least the current ones. There's the physical serial number, which is on the label on the back of the radio. So if you take your unit and radio and there's a physical serial number, I was going to the clips camera. There's a physical serial number on the back of the radio. That is what you register your radio with. And then you go into the menu system of the radio and you get the electronic serial number. And that's the number you put in when you buy the Pro Voice, the DMR, the NXDN, or if you got a Home Patrol, the Extreme Update. So they're similar, they're related, but they're actually slightly different. So when you go to the Uniden webpage, or if you buy the update from us, you're going to need the electronic serial number. That's the one from the menu. You go menu, settings, see scanner info, firmware version, and on that page you're going to see the electronic serial number, and then there's going to be a 3-character sum code. That sum code could be numbers and letters. So you'll need both of those in order to do the updates for your radio. Or when you buy the radio, just have us do it before we send it, and it'll already be set up and working.
Very good. Les has got a good question. Mm-hmm. How can you tell if you're in a simulcast area?
That is a fantastic question that we get all the time. And again, it goes back to radio reference. If you've already got if you have a non-SDS digital scanner and you're getting dropouts and missing words and stuff like that, or your signal strength indicator is doing one of these things, you probably are in a simulcast area. If you go to radio reference and look at the trunking system for that area, look at the site name. Most simulcast systems will have simulcast in the name. And there will be, it'll say something like either it's just simulcast for the name, or if there's multiple sites, it might say Chicago simulcast, Winnetka simulcast, Kenosha simulcast, and so forth. So in this system for Rowan County, there's only one site, and the name is simulcast. So that way you know it's simulcast, and then you'll know that the 436 or the 536 probably won't work too well, but the SDS will.
Yeah, this is the county that I'm in is Rowan County, and yes, it is a simulcast. I don't have I'm in a sweet spot here where I don't have a ton of issues reception-wise with this trunk system where I'm at. But, let's see here. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing with it. I mean, there's not a lot of issues with with it at all.
And that's a weird thing with simulcast. The only thing consistent about simulcast interference is that it's inconsistent. So it might work great today, and it won't work at all tomorrow, and then the next day it comes back. And I'm in the same boat. I actually live in an area that's covered by simulcast, but I get good reception because I am way, way, way out in the middle of nowhere, and I can only pick up one site. And I'm blocked from the rest of the sites by mountains, so I don't get a lot of simulcast interference from that. But I get in the car, head into town, and my 536 is almost useless. So, and for the people that are asking, or they're going to ask, simulcast basically is when there are two or more towers transmitting on the same frequency at the same time with the same information. And the problem is each of those towers are a little bit further away, and the signals arrive at your radio at slightly different time frames. Turn your background sound down. There you go.
Oh, now you see what I do when you take the headset off.
Yeah, I know. I do the same thing. So basically, they're arriving at your radio at slightly different times, and the ones from Tower A mix up with the zeros from Tower B, and they cancel each other out and cause all kinds of mayhem.
Yeah, so trying something different with my headphones. So apparently that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, but hopefully this is working
you're way loud. Yeah, back up a little bit. Oh, get right up on that mic. We had a guy when I was working that we used to have to tell him to take the mic out of your esophagus.
Yeah. So yeah, I was trying something a little bit fancy with the wireless headphones, but that's doing something weird. Nothing like the actual wired headphones. But
Yeah, no,
simulcast.
they always work best.
Yeah, the simulcast is definitely, that's why the SDSs are a huge hit. That's why the unication radios are a huge hit because of the simulcast issues.
Oh yeah, and the reason they have simulcast systems like that anyway is to get better coverage for the users in the area. So people ask, well, why would it have that? It's because of coverage. You blanket the area with towers so that you get coverage. And the $6,000 and $7,000 radios that Motorola and Harris provide work much better than a $500 scanner.
$6,000 or $7,000. That's
depending on the way you let them out. The last time I bought them, I paid $7,000 a piece for them. So
yeah, I'm sure Dale, since he works in the industry, is fully aware of how much those bad boys cost right now, and I'm sure they're very expensive. And I'm sure there's the base model, and then there's the bells and whistles. It's got everything. Model.
Well, we used to say the model numbers on the Motorola radios were based on price. So the APX 1000, APX 4000, APX 6000, APX 7000, APX 8000, more features, and that was about the price that you would end up paying for the darn things.
Yeah, that's.
You might want to turn your mic up just a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. That's better.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think you're a little bit louder tonight after we did that test as a backup. But it should be all right. Nobody's saying anything about it. So now they'll probably say it now that we put it out there. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm getting it from another source. So
okay. Let's see here.
Yeah. And the thing is when you look at the simulcast sites on Radio Reference, there might be 6 or 7 physical towers, but they're only going to be listed as one site, because they're all the same frequencies and data and such. So it'll say in Radio Reference site, simulcast 1 or what have you, but there's 7 or 8 or 6 or whatever amounts of towers all scattered throughout the areas, and they're all competing to be the strongest one to your radio.
Look at that.
Yep.
Boy, that's different. We're using different graphics tonight. I was thrown off by that. But yeah, that is a lot of money. You're thinking of, this is something that public safety agencies, really have to shell out a ton of money when they do these upgrades.
Yeah. But then again, remember, these are mission critical devices. People's lives depend on these things, so you don't scrimp on them. A $500 scanner, if it breaks, no big deal. But you need to have these radios. People will die if they don't have properly operating radios. So spending $7,000 on a two-way radio for a police officer or a firefighter is worth it, because that radio is going to be much more reliable, and it's going to have the feature set that they need. And and there's good reasons for it. Yeah, they're expensive, but there's a reason for it.
So this is a misnomer here. What I can see is I only program in one tower into my scanner. Taking a look at the example here, Rowan County, let's pull that up again. This has got only one tower, but it's got multiple sites within the system, and they simulcast. So that's what creates, they're using the same frequencies, and that creates the wishy-washy confusion of your scanner. So even though that this system has one site, you're still going to have simulcast issues.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. There's only one site, but if you click on where it says simulcast on that page, it should show you the multiple tower locations, and then click on the call sign.
Here we go. We'll take a look at this right now.
Yeah. And there's 3 sites there, and scroll down, there might be, scroll down to the map. So you got 4 sites. So there are multiple tower sites, and all of those tower sites are transmitting the same thing at the same time. And if you're someplace you're like where Route 29 sign is, your one site's real close, site number 2 is real close, but site number 4 is further away, and then site number 5 is even further away. So they're all arriving at your radio at slightly different times, and they're basically fighting each other for dominance, and it just makes everything a total mess.
Yeah, I do see. I do see why I'm not having issues because I'm right on top of one of those sites. So that's why, because it's the dominant is like, coming in there heavy.
Yeah. And there's other things you can do to avoid simulcast interference without spending $700 on an SDS radio.
And you know what one of them is? And we've got a ton of them on our website, is a beam antenna. So what you would do is look at, like Rich said, I'm pointing at the screen. Yeah. You guys can't see it. But, perfect example. Let me blow this out so we can see this a little bit bigger. But, right here, if you're right at the Route 29 sign that you see dead center, you're going to have to decide which one of these sites you want to aim at. And, doing that beam antenna, you can focus on that and it'll isolate the issues with all the others. Now, keep in mind, if you already have an antenna set up, and you want to, and this is your primary listening, maybe you swap out the antenna and go with a beam antenna. It's going to be a lot cheaper than buying a $650 radio to $700 radio. If you've got a perfectly good digital radio, this is going to probably be a good fix to be able to do that. But that's the thing. If you're right in the middle there, or even if you're a little bit east of where China Grove is on the map, dead center in between sites number 2 and 6, can you imagine that freaking chaos?
Oh yeah, and when you get a beam antenna, a directional antenna, it doesn't necessarily have to be at the nearest tower. You might get better results by pointing it at a further tower or in between 2 sites, because what you're going to do is you're going to deny a third site, and you might, so try it out. That the best direction for your antenna is not always going to be directly at a site. It might be in between sites. It might be at a further site. So just try it out. And then once you get that location figured out, figure it out on a map and see where that tower is pointing. And maybe you might identify what's going on. There are other things you can do too if putting up a beam antenna isn't practical for you. You can try reducing the efficiency of your existing antenna by turning on the attenuator. You can try using a lesser antenna. So don't use a gain antenna. Maybe try sticking a paperclip in the antenna connector and seeing if that works. Believe it or not, that has worked for me in the past. If you have a scanner antenna in your house or in your attic and you can't put up a beam, put up a piece of metal on one side of the antenna and make that act as a reflector, and try moving that around in different directions and see if you get that sweet spot where you get good reception consistently.
Okay, so this is, I think you kind of hit that question a little bit. Cannot put a beam antenna on the 8th floor apartment building. We've used, depending on if you've got a room that's on an exterior part of the building, and you're able to put it in a room where you're not going to upset your spouse, you can put a beam antenna inside and aim it out that window, and you can sometimes reflect it off of another building. Now, there's all types of funky things you can do with beam antennas, and I found, when I was this is before I worked for Scanner Master, and we were in Newton. I want to say it was Newton. Before we moved to Natick, I was a customer, and I went to one of Scanner Master's open houses, and Rich was there along with Sumner, and they had a beam antenna. The other Rich. Beam antenna aimed at the Worcester trunking system. And that's quite a distance from the Worcester trunking system, if you're familiar with Massachusetts. And they were getting it gangbusters, and they had it inside the building, pointed in the right direction, to be able to grab it. I mean, the other thing, too, is like Rich Barnett. I mean, he's done some commercial installs, and he has done some things with reflection. aiming it, it may not even be the direction of the sight, but the way it reflects, you may end up grabbing it in a sweet spot. So there's some options.
Absolutely. All righty, where are we?
Well, we can go back to the slideshow, or we can
right.
continue on with the questions, whatever direction.
All right, well, let's look. Do we have another question on the slide?
Let me just see. The Home Patrol Extreme question. Yep, we do have one more. So let me pop that up on the screen. Just bear with me for a second. We're going to get that loaded, and here we go.
Oh, good question here.
So we just ran out of stock on one of the things that I would recommend for this question.
Yeah.
It's the Scanner Blaster. We just ran out of stock on that. Hopefully they're on order. That's going to be one of the things, but if you're using it as a base unit or somewhere in your home, what is the next best thing, Rich, that we always talk about and recommend to people?
Yeah, so if you're at home, try using a set of computer speakers. And because a handheld scanner, you can't just plug a regular external speaker into a handheld scanner. It doesn't have enough audio power to drive a big speaker. That's designed to draw a speaker about the size of $50. It's not going to drive a big full-size speaker. So if you're at home, plug in a set of computer speakers. And you might have someone that's sitting in your garage or your attic, someplace like that. And plug them in, and the amplified ones, they usually work really well. Plug them into the headphone jack. If you're in the car, we do sell an amplified speaker that plugs into the car, runs off the 12 volts of your vehicle, and they usually work very well with a handheld scanner plugged into the headphone jack.
Yeah, and that's definitely key things to be able to do. Like I've used computer speakers in the past. And they work really well. I mean, you can find all types of basic speakers out there. You could even mess with, like if you get one of those Bluetooth little dongles for your scanner, which you can pick up at the big box store online. You can get one of those Wi-Fi dongles, and that'll allow you to create a Bluetooth connection, and then you could use one of your existing Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah. Most Bluetooth speakers have if you buy those Bluetooth speakers, those cordless Bluetooth speakers, a lot of them also come with a cable that you can plug into the headphone jack if you can't find one of those little dongles.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of options out there, but the key thing with a portable scanner is amplified. There's a resistor that's in there that's reducing down the volume, so when you use headphones, you're not going to blow out your eardrums. Now, the other tip that we recommend to people that have desktop scanners, there's a headphone jack that's easy access on the front. But before you use that headphone jack, you want to take a look in the back of the scanner. There may be an external speaker jack. Use that external speaker jack because it won't have the reduction like the headphone jack.
Right. So handheld scanners don't have those, but desktop scanners typically do.
Yeah, so, a lot of people forget, they set up their scanner and they only see that headphone jack because they're looking at it every day on a desktop scanner. So make sure you take a look at the rear of the radio. You may find an external speaker jack and definitely use that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason just posted in the vehicle, if you have an auxiliary input jack for your car stereo, you can hook that up to your scanner as well. Those are intended for things like iPods and those type devices. But a lot of cars will have those auxiliary inputs. I've got one on my dashboard, and you just take a male-to-male stereo cord and plug it one into the headphone jack of your scanner and one into the auxiliary input of your car stereo, and you can blast it out through your car stereo. Of course, you won't be listening to tunes at the same time, but, hey, you got a scanner. What do you need tunes for?
Yeah, I mean, that's I typically listen to the radio and the scanner at the same time, so I like to have my cake and eat it too. There's several different options on the Scanner Master website, regarding, being able to monitor if you love the Secret Service look. Take a look at the listen-only earpiece, the rabbit earpiece, which you put over your ear.
I like that one because it goes over your ear and not in your ear. After an hour or two, the one that goes in your ear starts hurting.
And then, of course, we have the lapel speaker, which is the Scanner Blaster. it is certainly will blast you right out of your seat. So make sure you adjust the volume accordingly.
Yeah, and we should have more of those back in stock pretty soon. And if there's anything on here that you're interested in that we're out of stock on, if you go to the product page itself, there's that email me when back in stock, just below where it says add to cart. Click on that, put your email address in there, and we will send you an email as soon as it arrives, and you'll know about it probably before I do.
Yeah, and then with these items, we're getting them in drips and drabs, so make sure you place that order as soon as possible once it comes back in stock.
Yeah.
That's definitely the key thing. We're trying to order as many as possible, but sometimes the manufacturer is only able to offer us half the shipment, not the whole shipment. So, so that's that's with the earpieces. What else is there? And that was all the recent questions that we've had.
Sure. People are asking about some of the pictures we promised.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that. So communication centers is our first subject here, so we'll take a look at that. And as always, we want to remind you that the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master. So here we go, Rich. Tell us a little bit about this photo.
Okay, so back in the 70s when I was in high school, I was a member of our, back then it was still called Civil Defense. And nowadays they call it the ESDA, and now they call it EMA, Emergency Management Agency. And these were the radios that we used in our mobile communications van. We had a 2.5-ton Army truck that we used for all kinds of things, and part of it was a communications van. So this was an old Motorola tube type VHF radio, and we used that for our VHF channel that we used at the time. And we had that old Motorola HT220 portable radio. And then if you look on the far end of it, there's a Motorola alert receiver, very similar to the Plectrons of the day, that was on the local fire channel. And that was our field communications. In fact, you could see the coax going up to the roof antenna, and we had an antenna on a mobile mast on that. And we used that a lot. We used it at things like the fireworks and the parade for communications. We went down to Springfield after a huge ice storm, and we helped out there. We brought our generator down there and spent a weekend out there. 4 or 5 days down there after the ice storm, helping out. And yeah, it was at the time it was cool, and that was big stuff, and that was the Prime Communications. Nowadays, obviously, it looks pretty dated. I mean, that was almost 45 years ago. And these, yep, there you go. Come on, there you go. All right, so. My head's going back and forth trying to catch up to the pictures. So when I first started off as a police dispatcher in the late 70s, this was the console that we used at the time. And there was a manufacturer's name for it, but for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. But I loved this console. It was very simple and easy to operate. Each channel was a column, and each row was a function. The bottom row was the transmit. The second to the bottom row was the select, and then the mute buttons, and then the call lights were all it. So it was really easy to operate with the multiple channels. And we had 2, 4, 6, 8 channels, a couple police channels, a couple fire channels, public works channels, and some backup channels. And it really is a really easy to use console. To change the light bulbs, I had a little tool with a little hole on it that you pop the cap off, you take the old light bulb out, put the new light bulb in, and it was a blast to operate. And that was my first dispatch job. All righty. This was the squad car radios when I got on the police department a couple of years later. This was the way we had radios in our squad cars. We had GE Master 2 radios. And we call this the erector set because there was basically just brackets and stuff all over the place. So we had 2 radios. The top radio was our dispatch radio with the gray mic, and the bottom radio was our VHF radio called ISPERN with the red mic, and that tells you that it was bought by the state police. And that had ISPER, our backup channels and such. And then, of course, we had the siren, the old federal siren, and a homemade switch box. I did not make it. This was before I started doing that kind of stuff. And you flick the top switch up to turn the flashing lights. You pull the switch out like the old headlight switches to turn on rotators. And then the alley lights were a couple of the other switches. It was very rudimentary, but that's what we had at the time. The big old mag light, billy club, and a 12-gauge Remington pump shotgun. And let's see. Okay. So in the 1990s, my buddy Scott and I went to a couple of different FCC monitoring posts. Now, I don't remember if Scott was with me on this particular tour, but he and I have been to a couple of these places. And back then, if you called ahead, they would have let you come out there for a tour. And so I went to the one out in Grand Island, Nebraska, which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, which was the whole idea. And I found it was on Old Potash Highway in Grand Island, just outside of town. And you pull up, there's a big fenced-in area, and inside the lot there were a bunch of different antennas, which we'll see a couple more of them. And this red colonial brick building. And inside the building were a bunch of radios. They wouldn't let me take pictures inside, but it was basically Collins radios and HF, VHF, UHF receivers, just about everything. And this was high-end stuff. And there were 4 or 5 techs working, and basically they'd be scrolling through the bands. They'd be following up on complaints or just looking for violations and such. And this was pre-internet days, so everything was all local. And it was a really fascinating facility. And as you're driving down the road, there's the U.S. monitoring stations. Half a mile, you turn left, and there it was. So this is Old Potash Highway, and you can see the Union Pacific Railroad in the background there. And here are some pictures of the antenna farm. So you see some of these telephone poles here. Those telephone poles were basically half height. They were like, I don't know, 15 feet, 20 feet tall versus the 30 or 40 feet tall, the regular ones. And it had a 1.5 mile long wire antenna. And I measured it with the odometer in my car. And it started off at one end and went to the other. The thing was 1.4 miles. And that was a long wire antenna. And then there were some guide towers. There were some other wire antennas. And you can see the scale of some of the antennas by that building and see how far away that building is compared to this. So there was a lot of antennas and a lot of wires. The building is still there. It's still owned by the federal government. I'm not sure what they're using it for now, but all the antennas are gone, and it's no longer an FCC monitoring post. There were similar posts like this in Allegan, Michigan, which I know Scott and I had been to. There was one down in Florida someplace. I think there were 4 or 5 of them around the country. And basically, they listened to everything. They had the capability for DC to daylight, and depending on what the mission was that day, they could tune it up and listen to it. All right, so this was the car I was driving at the time. I had an '89 Chevy Celebrity, and I had 3 antennas on the trunk lip and 1 NMO mount on the roof. And in the background, you see some of the antennas in there. But this car this is the only car that I ever had for 5 years, and it was a great car. It was ideal for radios because it had no transmission hub, so I could fit a lot of radios in the front of the car. And that was I had that car for 5 years, which is as long as I ever owned a car. And let's go to the next one. All right. So my buddy Scott and I went to the races. And this was at the Milwaukee 600 race. It was either 89 or 90. It was right around that time frame. And this was his van at the time. He had this big old panel van, and he had a company called Racecom, and he would sell radios and such to races and such. So we set up a monitoring post inside the van to go to this race, and we had an infield pass. So here we are on the infield of the racetrack, and on my post I had a R7000, a 70 Pro 2006 that had a PL counter above it. Above the R7000 is a Zetron M8, and that was actually a repeater controller, but we were able to modify it to use it as a PL decoder, and it would decode PL tones and DPL codes and such like that. This was back in the days before. I mean, we're spoiled now. The scanners you have now have all that stuff built in. Back then, we didn't have that. So this is what we had. And, of course, we had the police call and a notepad, and you weren't doing the stuff on a tablet. You were writing the stuff down. And we found all the driver frequencies and all the driver PL tones and all the operations channels, and it was before trunking and before DMR and everything else like that. And we had a bunch of mag mount antennas on the roof, and it worked like a champ. And I think we found every vehicle, every driver that day.
That is super cool. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And that's going to a race. It's an RF mess. I mean, most of it's all UHF. It's analog. You'll of course have, if the racetrack is in the middle of a city or an area where there's a lot of population, you also have that interference as well.
Oh, absolutely. And then Scott was sitting on the other side, and he had his station on the other side of the van, and we're sitting there, in chairs. You ever see the movies where they're doing surveillance van, and they're doing that's basically what we were doing here, and it worked like a champ. We had a blast. We were there all day. I don't think I ever saw a race car. We were having too much fun playing with radios.
So, shall we go into the camera photos?
Sure.
All right. So,
all right. So, Karma is the Chicago Area Radio Monitoring Association. It is a scanner club in the Chicago area. It started off actually as the Radio Communications Monitoring Association, RCMA, and then eventually we changed our name to Karma. And back in the 80s and 90s, we had an annual Karma picnic / field day. So there's me in the ball cap with my call sign and my porn stash. Will is biting his fingernails, and that's Larry N9EVW sitting there looking at the camera saying, "What are you taking my picture for?" And we had an ICOM 735, a 2004 scanner, that same Zetron PL decoder, a bunch of other scanners. It looks like I'm looking at the back of a couple 2006s. We had an MFJ antenna tuner. And there was a great story. So any of the Karma guys that are here will remember this story. We had a 160-foot long wire antenna. And we got there at about 4 in the morning to set this up. This is in a public forest reserve area. And it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark out when we set up our long wire antenna because it happened to fall on ham radio field day. So we set up this long wire antenna. We stretch it between two trees, really far apart, run the ladder line to the tuner so that we can run HF. And we're making contact after contact after contact. We're having an absolute blast. All over the world we're talking, running everything off of a 12-volt deep cycle marine battery. Well, this is a forest reserve, and a lot of people come out to ride their horses. And we hear this clump, 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 clump. What the? And apparently when we ran the wire, we ran it right across a bridle path, which we darn near decapitated a guy on a horse. We figured we had it up high enough where nobody was going to be bothered by it. We didn't anticipate a 6-foot-tall guy sitting on a 8-foot-tall horse. So he's like 14 feet up in the air, and he darn near got decapitated. We had to quickly remove the antenna and relocate it. So that guy was not happy. On the right-hand side of the picture, you'll see one of the temporary masts that we put up with several antennas. There's a bunch of different scanner antennas on there. We actually had several of these portable antennas set up, and we had them guide down, and we had a picnic shelter there, and we had some of them mounted on the roof. And what we did is we took some of these picnic tables and stacked them up and basically made our own ladder so that we get up on the roof so we could put these towers on there. And we had an absolute blast with this. Let's go to the next one.
All right. So, what was the mission of doing this?
Spending the day playing radios with your buddies.
Okay.
And we had a thing we called a chicken run. So we would send a guy out to get chicken at a roasted chicken shop, and we'd be talking to him on the radio, and chicken one from base, where are you? And we had a great time. All right, wow. So this old-time Karma guys will remember this guy. A guy in the taxi cab, his name was Brant. He's no longer with us, but he was one of the greatest guys you ever met. One of the funniest guys you ever met. Really good guy. Knew a lot about radios, and not this particular car, but his next taxi cab that he had after this had even more antennas, and he had probably 12 or 15 antennas on the LTD Crown Victoria that he had at the time. So Scott and I sneak out of a radio club meeting one night he was at, and we snuck out to his car. We unscrewed all of his antennas on the roof of the car and just left them setting on the mount, and then we kind of hid. As he came out, he opened up the passenger door, put his briefcase with his books and stuff in it, and then slammed the door. And then all the antennas go boom, 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 and falling down. And he's looking at the thing like, what? And he's just looking at him, and they're just going down in kind of slow motion. He's looking at him like he has no clue what the heck happened. And we're just sitting there laughing our butts off. And and the poor guy, he just had no clue what was happening. And then we felt bad about it afterward because he didn't know what antenna went on one mount after that, because they all rolled off into the ground. And because he didn't know which antenna was on one mount, he put an antenna up there and hooked it up to a radio. And then he put another antenna, hooked that up to the next radio, and so he really didn't know which one. So he had to spend the entire weekend figure out what antenna mount what to what radio. So he put the right antenna on there. And then in the smaller picture, you'll see some of the antennas that we set up at this field day. And when you're up on the roof, you see the stacked up picnic tables there that we used to get up onto the roof. The Forest Preserve Police Department was not particularly happy about this. We had to smooth over. A couple of us had some badges that we were able to flash to keep them off our back. But it was we would had an exact. We had an extremely good time at this and the other picnics. And contrary to public belief, this was not low ground.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if this was an elevated location, which it was.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we chose this particular forest reserve, because it did have elevation on it. And we had a guy that complained, that's low ground. No, it wasn't. It was not low ground. It was high ground. So we had an absolute blast.
Let's dig in a little bit further into this. So we have classic shack photos. Shall we finish this off and then go into the questions?
You got it.
All right, so let's take a look at it. As always, the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master. We are diving back in the time machine to 2003. This guy named Rich submitted his home shack photos. He's got several scanners there. He's got the two of the Pro 2006, the BC 780 XLT. Do you know this guy, Rich?
I've met him once or twice.
This looks a lot different than your current shack right now. I mean, it looks like there's been a lot of upgrades over the years.
Yeah, just a bit. This was actually the remnants of a radio console from one of the local police departments. I knew the guy there, and he gave me the parts. I would have taken the entire. He had a 2-position console system with the whole big thing. I would have taken the entire thing if I had room to put it. But at the time I didn't have the room to put it, and this was all I could get. So I just kept this one, and I gave some of the other parts to some of my friends. So this was the remnants of a Centricom console. And so in the very top, you see a couple Motorola GM300s, and it's very similar radios. My dual banders up there. There's the 2006s and 780s, and there's an AR1000 off to the side, and my i7000. The neat thing about it, and I spent a lot of time working on this on that panel with the two-tone decoders and all those switches. With those rotary switches, I could switch either decoder to any radio on this stack and slide it back and forth. And then if you're familiar with those CD1 decoders, there was no power switch on the front. So I had the red button was for turn the power on and off on them. And then the white button on the other side was a polarity button for the DPL. Because depending on the way you hooked up to the radio, sometimes the DPL code was inverted. So you had to, so I was able to flip the polarity. And then with the rotary knobs, I was able to switch which radio it was connected to. So I had a lot of fun building it. It was a lot of point-to-point wiring, but it worked. It worked very well.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good. I mean, it's self-contained. I mean, you've got a couple of two-way radios there. You've got scanners. You've got the icon of its time, the 780 XLT, which was one of the top scanners of its day. Look at that AOR AR 8000. I mean, that's a large radio.
Yeah, that radio is quite a bit larger than a 436. It's quite a bit thicker and taller. And those were great radios at the time. They were DC to daylight receivers as well. So,
yeah, I mean, we've went from size changes on. Remember, we went through a period of time where we went to small scanners, and now they're slowly going back up to the larger scale.
Yeah. Well, they go up and down. Remember the old Bearcat 200 and 100 XLTs? They're great big radios, even bigger than the 436. And then they started going smaller, the 235 and 245s. And then they started getting bigger again. And then we have the 325s, are quite a bit smaller. Compare these size, they're quite a bit smaller than the 436. So, yeah, it goes up and down. Some people like the bigger radios because you got more room to fiddle buttons if you got big hands. Other people like the smaller radios because you can fit it in your shirt pocket. Yeah.
And just looking at the ICOM 7000, the R7000, look at the rotary knob on there. I mean, that's definitely it fits in your hand. It's, you've got a feel for it there.
Yeah, and it's got a dimple in there. You put your finger in there and you just do one of these things.
Yep.
Yeah, and my 8500 does the same thing. It's the same size knob, and we call that a knob twiddler.
Yeah, and you can either, with some of the scanners that are out there in the past, you could either scroll through on some of the Unitons that had that big knob. You could either scroll through the frequencies or scroll through channel by channel, depending on how you had it set.
Yep. Yeah, you could do the same thing on the Icon, except that the knob was for frequencies, and then it had a small knob where you can go for the channel select.
Nice.
For a memory select.
All right, we'll continue on here. This is some Mobile Shack photos. Yeah. Look at like we were talking about this prior to going on the air. I mean, the various size of some of the radios that are here, I mean, we've kind of gotten spoiled with mobile radios at this point. Both Radio Shack, Uniton, actually I shouldn't say both, but many of the manufacturers of the time, Radio Shack, Uniton, GRE, and now Whistler, most of all the mobile radios are the same size. And they, there's a lot of variations, as we can see here. The realistic one is the widest of the bunch there.
Yeah, that was the 2006, and you see that little red thing in the center, just to the right of the display. That was a little dip switch because it had the 6400 channel mod, and basically it was a memory module that you built and put inside the radio, and that's how you selected which of the 16 groups of 400 channels of memory. And then the big meter on it was a signal strength indicator. And these were both Bill Cheek designs and that I built. And then the AR8000 is connected to the optoelectronics Scout. And that was how we did close call back then. We didn't have close call in the scanners like we do now. And if you wanted to do some near signal reception, that's how you did it. And imagine I walk around the mall back then with the radio on one side and the Scout on the other so I could get close call. And now you do that with one little scanner. And then there's a Bearcat 760, and that's connected to the tone decoder. And then at that time, I had a VHF A7 Spectra, and the one you're looking at there is the UHF A9 Spectra. And those were I used mostly for ham radio and for our police and fire channels. And that was basically an old console I bought at a ham fest that was meant for a Chevy or a Crown Victoria. It had this mounted in, I think this was one of my Honda Vans from the time. So I just basically took out the center, there's a little center console with the storage area, and I took that out and put this in place and mounted it with some brackets to the seat mounts, and it actually worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like it worked really well. I mean, if looking at that other shot there, you can see a flip phone.
Yeah. Back in the days, we had those old Motorola flip phones, which were the hot phones. They were like the iPhones of the day. If you had one of those flip phones, you were cool. And I got a buddy of mine, Scott, who had one of those till it stopped working. When and he kept that to the bitter end. He loved it, and that was back in the days when they were still analog cell phones, and you could still hear them on the scanners. And they worked very well at the time. The analog phones sounded much better than the current digital ones, but that was the phone, and that's what I put in my cup holder.
Oh, so that's really cool.
Now those are actually two different eras pictures. Same vehicle, I think, but two different eras. So on that one, I've got the meter on the right side of the scanner and then the PL decoder up there. And then I've got my dual band radio underneath it and the 760. So it's a same vehicle, but different layout on the radios.
Yeah, I thought there was a difference in there. Then it looked like it was the same setup.
I just noticed that now. So, and then back then, we didn't have nav systems built in the vehicle. So I had a program called Street Atlas that ran on the computer, and it was a Windows 98 computer, and and I had a Garmin GPS connected to it, so I could navigate just like you do these days with either with your phone or a nav system built in a car. But I could also back out to DOS and run Trunker or eTrunker, which I did a lot back then.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed over the years. I mean, this is looking back to 2003. A lot has changed over the period of time. We're going to get into the romper room section of the broadcast. We want to just remind you, we are now selling Scanner Guys baseball caps. Order online at the Scanner Guys Weebly.com. I'll post again in the chat, the direct link to the product page. It does say, for whatever reason, medium, but it's all sizes fit all. Definitely check that out. It has adjustable band on the back. We're trying to sell 50 of these hats before next Friday. So not this upcoming Friday, the following Friday. So place your order in. These hats support the things that we're doing here at the Scanner Guys. To be able to keep these broadcasts rolling and, upgrade some of our technology as needed. So definitely, purchasing one of these hats will certainly help us out. We're trying to sell about 50 of these by the Friday. What was it? The 4th? Yes, Friday the 4th.
4th. Cool.
So definitely place an order for one of those. Just want to remind you, next week's broadcast, yes, we're rolling into December the 2nd. We're going to redo our GPS broadcast. So in case you missed it, when we did this on YouTube, not YouTube, but on Facebook, we're going to do it again with a little bit of updates. So definitely tune in. Everything that you need to know about GPS scanning, that'll be on Wednesday, December the 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We will be live right here on YouTube. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Do it now. We're excited about the second half of the show where we're going to answer some of your questions. We just want to remind you that the Train Aficionado live show, next broadcast will be Monday, December the 7th. That's the first Monday of the month. So make sure you tune in. See us live on the Train Aficionado YouTube account, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right there on that channel as well. As for a topic for the Train Aficionado show, we haven't decided that yet, but we're going to have a pretty decent segment for Rich. He got back a lot of his photos of when he went out rail fanning, so I'm sure we'll have Rich's adventures and rail fanning will be one of the segments, and then we'll cover another segment on the show during the evening, so make sure you tune in and join us. We're excited to have you on that show as well. So let's.
Yeah, it worked out well because that's where a lot of these pictures came from. I finally got my slide collection digitized.
Yeah, that's for sure. So let's kind of take a look at some of those questions that we have in the hopper here.
Well, a lot of guys giving us Thanksgiving wishes, so holiday wishes to everybody out there. Special shout out to our buddy Chris. He's got his he loves his four port power supply adapter for his unit and scanners that he got from us a little while ago. Those things are great. You can plug 4 scanners into one power outlet, and you don't have wall warts all over the place. So if you got 4 scanners or 3 scanners and a multi-coupler, get one of those 4 power supplies. They work great. A lot of different check-ins from some of our regulars, some of our new guys as well, and a lot of new people this time around. So welcome to everybody that has checked in. A couple of new guys, Dave's in Colorado. I don't think I've seen him on there before. Ray is working at a grocery store, and apparently everybody and their brother's buying turkeys. And from what I understand, everybody's buying the smaller turkeys this year because you can't have a whole lot of people. So we bought a full-size turkey, but then, that's going to, like I said, we're going to be eating that for about the next 2 weeks. Dave's first Thanksgiving outside was when he was at Luke Air Force Base, which is basically just on the other side of the mountain from my house. He was back there in the 70s, so now he's back in Indiana, so it's too cold to do it outside. So, yeah, we're going to be sitting on the patio tomorrow eating our turkey. And for you guys eating turkey in the snowstorm, too bad. That's why I moved to Arizona. So Joe is having a great time tonight. He's rail fanning in Rochelle. So if you're a rail fan in the Midwest, you got to go to Rochelle. It's like one of those things you got to do. The neat thing about the rail fanning in Rochelle is it's where the Union Pacific's tracks cross the Burlington Northern. It's very busy. It's open 24 hours a day. You can park in the lot. They've got a shelter there, so if it's raining or snowing, you can stay in there. They've got a scanner that you can listen to the railroad traffic. And inside the shop, which you can see in the window when you're outside, even when they're closed, they got the ATCS monitor display there, so you can see what's coming and what's where things are. Dave has just put in a Ring doorbell, and it cuts in and out. And his IT tech son-in-law says he thinks that the scanners interfere with it. And a couple others. Randy says that his used to do that. It was interference. It turned out to be interference from his neighbor's Wi-Fi. So it's unlikely that your scanner is going to interfere with a Wi-Fi device like a Ring doorbell. Remember, Wi-Fi these days is extremely crowded, and the same frequency ranges are used by Bluetooth, microwave ovens, all kinds of wireless devices. So if you know how to do it, you might want to consider changing your Wi-Fi channel. If you don't know how to do it, learn. So change your Wi-Fi channel. Problem is most Wi-Fi devices default to channel 6, and that means channel 6 is really, really busy. So pick anything other than 6, and that's a good chance that you're going to avoid at least some of that interference.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with your when we bought our new house here, we actually got a Ring doorbell. I haven't had any issues with it. A portion of our house, the front section of our house, is brick, and then they did an addition onto the house, which is in the room next to me, which is the master. It's basically all the master in the rear of the house.
Yeah.
The master bathroom,
Master suite.
the master walk-in closet, and the master suite. And there's actually a brick wall in between me and the master, which you can't see because it's been covered up. So this is a little bit soundproof for when I'm doing these broadcasts. So the Wi-Fi routers out there, there's different grades of Wi-Fi routers. I basically got one of the more expensive ones because I wanted capability to be able to handle streaming. All of our TVs now are smart TVs, and they're streaming. So that's the other thing that you may want to invest in when you get a wireless router. If you're going to be doing a lot of Netflix, Hulu, or you're using one of those stream television broadcasts, I have Spectrum, and Spectrum actually has a streaming service. So I don't have any cables running up to my TV. It's a streaming service. So I believe Comcast, part of their Xfinity, is also going to have a streaming service. So you may want to invest into a pretty decent router. That's another thing that will help you. The other thing that you can do, if your Ring doorbell is a little bit outside of your network or in a section, you can get
your Wi-Fi
repeaters.
coverage.
Yeah, you can do a repeater as well. So there's several different things to it. I know I ended up getting the more expensive Wi-Fi router because of the my wife was like, I can't watch this stuff if it's buffering. So
so don't skimp on a Wi-Fi router these days, and you may also want to check with your internet provider to see if they have a faster tier service as well if you do a lot of streaming. I mean, it's not unusual for my wife and I to be streaming 2 different shows at the same time. Plus, I'll have 2 YouTube streams going for watching railroad cameras. So, yeah, you can eat up your Wi-Fi quite a bit. So,
I mean, I have, like nights like this, she's watching TV, and then, I'm streaming this out. So, definitely you want to make sure that you have enough of bandwidth. But, the Ring doorbell, I love it. Works great. I haven't had any issues with reception, with like interference with scanners. I'm thinking, Rich, you're right. It's definitely to do with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Wi-Fi or microwave or something. So, so Les is in Ontario, and apparently Radio World is still active in Toronto. So if you're in the Greater Toronto area, check out Radio World. I used to go to Durham Radio, which was in Oshawa, which is in the eastern suburbs of Toronto, but they're gone from what I understand. And before that, I used to go to a place called Lakeshore Electronics, and they used to be there was in Burlington on the south suburbs of Toronto, and it was on Lakeshore Drive, and that place was awesome. It had an entire wall of crystals, the little plastic drawers. It had an entire wall of crystals, and each drawer had a different frequency, and they had Uniden crystals, they had Regency crystals, they had Midland crystals, and all these different crystals, and a huge selection. I would go there, and I'd spend hundreds of dollars on crystals back in the day. So shout out to my buddy Joel. Joel and I have known each other for around 30 years or so. We met actually at a huge fire on the north side of Chicago. I was working midnights, and I heard about the fire on the scanner overnight, and I went down there after I finished my shift, and we're standing around, 2 guys standing there with scanners looking at each other. We started talking, and now we've known each other for 30 years. So, hey, Joel. So Ron writes, ever wonder why portables have keypad lockouts and desktop don't for scanners?
That's a good question.
And weirdly enough, the SDS 100 also does not have a keyboard lockout. which I complained about when it first came out, but
the
they weren't able to
reasoning
change it.
the reasoning behind it is you carry this on your side.
Yeah.
How many times do you, if you don't have the keypad lockout on, how many times do you bump the radio and you got it on hold on something? You're walking around for a good 10 minutes. Why am I not hearing anything? Or, you know what, the other thing that I do quite often is I bump it just right. And I have the keypad light on. And, of course, I have it so it stays on because I've changed the setting. And here I am. I'm draining my battery because not only am I running the scanner, I get the keypad light on.
Yeah.
And that's
well, and most portable mobile radios don't have that because it's usually not an issue. But, the keypad lock is much more important on a handheld scanner. But like I say, surprisingly, the SDS 100 doesn't have it because it's got a membrane keypad. You're a lot less likely to accidentally hit one of the buttons, I suppose.
Well, I mean, with the Home Patrol 1 and 2, it's got a screen lock.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very surprised, I mean, the good thing about keypad lock is, like we mentioned I think it was last show or the previous show, it's a great thing for your non-technically savvy relative. And you play IT person for their various electronic devices and gadgets. Yep. That prevents them from getting into the works and then you're going over there and especially... they'd say, I don't know what I did. It is doing this now. I don't know what I did. And then you got to go over there and look at the radio and say, all right, what the heck did they do? Yeah.
And they swear up and down, I didn't touch it. Well,
I didn't touch it.
You locked in on a channel or something,
Yeah, I mean, the keypad lock is a blessing for those types of people.
Well, Ron said he even had to build a plexiglass cabinet with a master lock on it to keep the guy from messing up his own scanner.
Oh man, yeah. Just put the speaker on the outside, and then they'll be behind glass. You can see it, but you can't touch it.
All right. Well, we were talking about scanner stores a little bit ago. Scanners Unlimited in Redwood City, California, which I think is a Sacramento area, if I'm not mistaken. Closed about 10 years ago. So there used to be a big scanner shop in Anaheim. And that's where I went. I went there actually on my honeymoon when we went to Disney World for our honeymoon. Got married in Vegas and went to Disney World for a honeymoon. And I actually conned her to let me go to the scanner shop in someplace around Anaheim. And I bought my detailed edition of Police Call and met Captain Maudlin from RCMA there. And we had a great time. It was a good day.
Okay,
I didn't think so, but
so you got married in Las Vegas. Was this by an Elvis impersonator?
No, but we got married at one of those little chapels, and that was actually an option. If we wanted to pay extra, we could get the Elvis wedding, where the minister, priest, or whatever it is, or the wino that picked up off the street who officiates would dress up as Elvis. But we didn't pay extra for the Elvis wedding.
Is there pictures?
Yeah, but nothing that I can show. I probably got them someplace, but
that's cool. So was it a big wedding or was it a small, quaint?
25 people. A couple of our friends came from Chicago. My mom came up from Phoenix. My sister came in from LA. The other one came in from Minneapolis, and the other one came from Chicago. So we had, I don't know, probably about 25 people there.
That's cool.
Yeah. And neither one of us wanted a big wedding. So.
Oh, that's good. And then you guys did the ultimate, the Disneyland, and of course you got to go to a radio shop. You worked that in.
Yeah, hunk of burning love of scanners. Yeah.
Yes.
So, shout out to Antonio. He bought 2 shirts this last week and ordered and received his scanner blaster. So he probably got the last scanner blaster.
Yeah, we're gonna get some more of those. So keep an eye on our website. Definitely. Sign up for email when back in stock. But yeah, that's definitely key.
Somebody else was asking about reception issues. One of the support calls we get all the time is people can't hear something on their home patrol. And one of the first questions we ask, do you see a where it says a 10 on your radio. And is it white or red? Yeah.
Oh, that was my big pet peeve with the Home Patrol one. And I really wish that they took that off the home screen on the Home Patrol 2. If we are a part of a beta testing team, if they ever have the Home Patrol 3, and I know that there's a few of you that watch out there, we need to band together and get that off the home screen, because, I mean, most of you and, the average day user, like that knows better is not going to touch that. But the person that's not so familiar and they're not going to realize they're going to hit it and they're going to be, I don't hear anything.
Oh, if it's on, it's got to be better. Yeah. No. That's the way it works. Put it on the advanced menu.
Or they press it and they don't realize it.
Yeah.
That's the other culprit, because I didn't touch anything. It's yet again, I didn't touch anything. What is that? I don't know what it is. And then you ask them, what color is it? Is it gray or is it red? And then, it's red. I said, well, there's your problem. We need to turn that off.
There you go. Bob ordered another shirt and a hat. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate
so much.
that. We've already spoken about Chris looking for his GRE PSR 500. And let's see here. Okay, so Ira is in Detroit, and often he can hear talk groups as far away as Mackinac as the SDS 200 and EMS from Bay City, and both of those are 50, 75 miles away. Mackinaw's 200 miles away, and EMS from Bay City is like 75. And he asked how that happened. It's actually quite simple. Trunking systems like they use in Michigan, the statewide Michigan system, it's MPCSS, I think is what it's called. It's like a cellular system. There's an antenna here and an antenna here, a site here, and it's all, the entire area is covered with these sites. And when I'm talking on a radio, I affiliate with the tower in my area. And the guy I'm talking to affiliates with the tower in his area if it's not the same tower. So that means our conversation is going to go out on the tower by me and by the tower by him. And anybody else on the system who's tuned into that conversation, that tower will also have that communication. So the only time you're going to hear Mackinac from Detroit, which is, again, 200 miles away, is if there is a Mackinac unit tuned to that channel while they are in Detroit. So and then as soon as he turns off his radio and the affiliation goes away, you are no longer going to hear that Mackinac conversation. So even though you're in the same state and on the same system, you are not normally going to hear the stuff from other parts of the state unless one of those radios happens to be being used by somebody visiting your area and turned on and tuned to that channel.
We did a slideshow not too long ago, one of these Wednesday night shows, which is on the YouTube channel, that kind of went over in detail with the affiliation of radios on a system. So definitely take a look at that. We have, I think there's like 20 some odd shows now that are archived on YouTube, and that's one of them. So definitely take a look at it. If you're got nothing to do tomorrow, you can certainly binge watch the Scanner Guys. All the episodes up to a certain point are there. So do it right here on the YouTube channel.
All righty. Kevin is in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is north of Milwaukee, 50 miles or so. He's got a 436 and an SES 100. They have some conventional channels. They have a P25 county channel. And he seems to be missing something on the county channel. So again, a lot of it depends on whether or not radios are affiliated with the tower in your area, and not all and some of the communications from the analog side might be simulcast on the county side and vice versa. So there's a lot of reasons why you may not be hearing it. There might not be any radios affiliated. There might not be, or the scanner might be stopping on something else while they're talking on that channel, and you might miss it. So there's a million and one reasons why you might not hear it. So, those are a couple places to check. So, we were talking about the Oh, yeah, central. So where Chris lives is in central Michigan, and the county that he uses, that he listens to, is mostly EDAX. But they are moving over to the P25 system, and that Michigan State system we were talking about earlier. Looks like they will be going to phase 2 eventually, but not the entire system. So very similar to Illinois, the Starcom system, Cook, DuPage, Lake counties, the area around Chicago is phase 2 for a lot of agencies, but the more rural areas, there's no reason to make that type of investment because they don't need that capacity at this point. So Lincoln asks, what scanner a couple of these guys like the best, the 436 or the 100? We get that question quite often. The 436 and the 100 are very similar in the way they operate, but how they operate internally is quite a bit different. So the big difference between the 436 and the SDS 100, and we're playing show and tell here, is that the SDS 100 works much better on digital simulcast and has got a color display which is entirely customizable, whereas the 436 has got a white on black display and does not work particularly well on simulcast in some cases. So if you have simulcast in your area, you probably want an SDS. If you want the color screen, you probably want the SDS. If you don't have either, the 436 is a great radio.
Yeah, I mean, for me, where I'm living, I have 536s that I'm using here, and with that Rowan County trunk system that we were showing, I'm not having much of an issue with simulcast. I've noticed it now that I noticed it a little bit now. In the truck now, I have a 536 versus the SDS 200, and I notice like a couple of bloop, 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 but it goes away relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But I can understand, like if you're sandwiched stationary in between multiple towers that are simulcast, I could totally get the frustration.
Yeah, well, it's not, in my vehicle, I have a 536 and a 996 P2, and most of the time it works just fine for me. But if I'm spending a lot of time in town, I'll take the SDS 100 with me and use that. But if I'm driving out in the desert or up north or something like that where they're not using simulcast, the 536 works great for me. So let's see here. And we talked about that. Joe got his 2 cup call holders. They work great for his cell phone and his radio. That's another question we get often. We sell the cup call for radios. They work great, and the desk call. But they actually were designed for cell phones, and they work very well for that as well.
If you hop over to the Scanner Master YouTube account, you get to see an unboxing of the cup call and the desk call, which I'm holding in my hand. Just produced that video, so definitely check it out on the product pages as well. Those videos are there. Right now, at the time of this broadcast, they are out of stock, but we should be getting more in relatively soon. This was a huge hit, and it works great. I keep pulling my my 436 on and off the cup call.
Yeah, and actually we had several cases of these things, and we mentioned them on our show a couple times now, and with our emails, and they just went like hotcakes. So yeah, we are getting more of them, and we'll have them in soon. So that desk call is a weighted stand, and it's got a what's on the bottom of that rubber pad on the bottom.
Yes.
So keeps them from sliding around the desktop.
Yeah, this little rubber feet on the bottom, and then this is the cup call. And how this works is you twist this. Oops, I gotta put this so you can see. And this will expand the base so it'll fit snugly in the cup holder. The photos that you see in the video are from my Toyota Tundra. So the cup holders in there are quite large. This was able to expand, so it was nice and snug. And then we showed various radios that it was able to hold, something as small as the 125, something as large as the 436, and a chunky radio, which would be the equivalent of a GRE PSR
500.
500, or which I used in the video, or you could also use the modern Whistler 1040. So this is another great thing. We'll have more of these in stock. If you're on the Scanner Master Facebook page, I will be posting as soon as they're back in stock, so definitely keep an eye on there. You can hop over to the website, and you can have an email notification as soon as they're back in stock as well.
Fantastic. All right. Ron mentions a great tip here. If you're having some reception issues, take a Q-tip with isopropyl alcohol. And it's important that you use isopropyl alcohol and not whiskey or some other alcohol-based device. Use isopropyl alcohol. There's a reason for it. And take a Q-tip and take the antenna off on the radio and swab the antenna all around the silver contacts and where the antenna connects onto the radio, and then let that dry. Okay, the alcohol will evaporate by itself if you let it dry for a couple seconds, and that cleans the gunk. If you do that on a radio you've had for a while, take a look at the Q-tip when you're done, and you'll see some of the crud on there. It does help clean the antenna connection off, and if it's exposed to the elements for a bit and it gets dirty, it will affect the reception. So isopropyl alcohol is very, very good when it comes to cleaning electronic parts. Again, use it in a well-ventilated area, and let it dry before you put things back together again. It only takes a couple seconds to dry.
Yeah, Dale used his cup call on his couch as cup holders. He sent me a photo of that through our Scanner Guys Facebook page, and thank you so much for sharing that, because that's another cool thing. That some of us have couches with those cup holders. You could use the cup call, hold your radio, so while you're watching TV.
Then where are you going to put your remote control?
Oh, I mean,
that's what we use. That's where all our remote controls. We got 18,000 remote controls, and they're all stuffed in the cup holders.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I just have, I have two remote controls right here. And thankfully, I have two TVs in here for the Roku, so I just aim it at one and aim it at the other. So I technically would have more than that.
Well, here's 4 that I've got right here, and there's a couple more over there. So I've got, in my office, I've got 2 TVs on the walls, and each one of them has got an Apple TV, and then there's a remote control turn on each TV, plus I got a Roku on that one, and then the remote for the fan. Oh, yeah, I mean, I got these darn remotes all over the place. And then in the living room, we got a dozen remotes out there between the Blu-ray player, the TV, the Apple TV, the Roku, the all the stuff. And then, of course, then the ceiling fan's got to have a remote control. The patio lights got a remote control. And I have to actually label all my remote controls so I know what it does, because I forget which one does what. Oh, let's see here.
This is one that we got a question upon, and I wanted to answer it, but we weren't in the spot to answer it. So, Dave, this is a good question from you. The Scanner Master National Scanner Museum is closed for the foreseeable future. All the museum collection is boxed up. The new location doesn't have any space to accommodate the museum. So as of right now, that's what the deal is. And also for walk-ins, we don't do walk-ins at all at the office. Basically, you're 2 scanner experts, one being in Arizona, one being in North Carolina. It would be hard for us to greet you at the door when we're states away. Yeah,
absolutely. And, so like I said, I wish we had space for that museum. So we're thinking about doing something virtually with the museum down the road, but that's going to be a while before we get something like that going. Kevin writes, lately with his SDS 100, when he turns the selector dial, it skips back and forth. And the 436 will occasionally do that as well. What that dial is it's actually a switch. So the dial goes round and round, and every time you turn the dial this way, it flips this switch. When you dial the flip switch this way, it flips another switch. So it tells you if you're going left or right. And then as you turn the knob, it's how many clicks. And those mechanical contacts can get damaged if you bump the radio. If you're too enthusiastic when you're pressing the knob down to make a selection, don't jam it, just tap it. Like I say, it could get damaged if you knock it, and you might not even notice that you knocked it. So that could get damaged. If that happens, you may end up having to send it into a unit to get repaired. It's not a very difficult repair. They'll usually just replace the assembly. And if it's under warranty, they'll probably fix it for free, unless it's obviously damaged if you dropped it. But the worst it's going to cost you is $75, $80 out of warranty repair. So, and for a $600 radio, it's an annoyance at this point. So, let's see here. Tony got one of the last scanner blasters. Yep. And that is the lapel speaker that we sell. We get calls all the time. We used to sell those lapel speakers for handheld scanners that weren't amplified. They're $19.95 or something like that.
Yeah, they weren't the greatest, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, it kind of brought up the speaker up to your shoulder, but it really didn't add any volume. These amplified, scanner blaster speakers are well worth it, and especially for noisy environments. So like a lot of us, may do rail fanning or aviation where it's a noisy environment if you're on scene. So you definitely want something that's amplified.
We were talking earlier about Karma and how we used to be the Chicago chapter of the RCMA, and the RCMA asked us to change the name, asked all the subsidiary clubs to change their name. And if you bring up the message from about 45 minutes ago at 03 past the hour, Joe writes that we changed the name after Ted and he were arrested in the secure parking garage. So, but wait, guys, no, they really weren't arrested. There was a rumor that was promulgated by somebody who apparently didn't like some of us, and who accused some of us of being arrested on the sixth level secure parking garage at O'Hare Airport with a bunch of radios. Well, first off, there was no secure parking level on the sixth floor of the parking garage at O'Hare Airport. None of us ever got arrested or even talked to or anything like that. There was nothing like that going on. I don't know how that rumor got promulgated, but this bad apple was doing that. So that is one of the running jokes that we have with the Karma guys about the sixth floor secure parking garage and it's low ground and everything else. So it's one of our ongoing funnies that we do. So, and Bob writes, Karma had great times. Bob and I have known each other for about 30 years, and we've had a lot of fun with the Karma stuff. So, Dale writes, high ground in Illinois. Yeah, there's not much of it, but it's relative high ground. It's got an elevation of 500 feet versus 450. So, we have we don't have mountains in Illinois. We have mounds, and those are usually the highest places. In fact, the highest place in Illinois is a mound. It's called Charles Mound. It's way up north near Galena, and it's like 1,200 feet. Well, my house here in Arizona is at 1,900 feet, and I'm considered in the valley. So Illinois is not known for its high ground or its hills. Alicia writes, what radios are on the top shelf? I assume she's talking about the picture from my shack from 2003, because that's about the time she wrote that. Those were Max Tracks and GM 300s. So I had a VHF and a UHF. I was in the GMRS back then. Yeah, so there's a pair of Max Tracks, a pair of GM 300s and a Max Track up there. So the one radio on the right is the Max Track, and the other two are GM 300s. And I use those for ham radio. I use them for GMRS, and they were really good radios at the time and relatively inexpensive. and easy to program too. So, Chris has got an old MaxTrack. He uses it for a wireless motion detector. You can't kill those old Motorola radios. Doug's Radio Shack back in 1987 was a single Regency MX5000. It's the only thing he could afford that could receive mill air. So those Regency MX5000s were actually made by Upatero. And I think we talked about these in one of our classic scanner shows. And when they were first advertised, they looked like the Regency scanners of the day, slope front and straight sides. And when you put them in a car, you put them in straight, the display was kind of angled or beveled. Mm-hmm. Well, when I ordered one based on that picture, and it was an MX7000, which was the same case. And when I got it, the radio was about half the size of those Regency radios at the time, and it was a real funky-looking little thing. Worked great. Had the slowest scan speed of any radio I've ever seen before or since. But they were as sensitive a radio as I'd ever had. So. Dale liked the old Centricom furniture. Yeah, I had a lot of fun putting that together, and that worked very well. And let's see here. Alicia had an HX1500. That was another one of our classic scanners. Chris had the optoelectronic Scout, and he liked it because it would memorize the hits. So with the Scout, what that was, it was basically a recording frequency counter, and it would look for signals above a certain noise threshold, and it would click on it, and you would hear a little beep, and then you look at the display, it would tell you what the frequency was, and then it would record it to a memory, and you can go back and with some buttons and see what the memory hits were. So if you walked around the mall or someplace with one of these things, then you can go back when you get out of the car, you go through all the frequencies. Oh, okay, 464.75 and 462.9125 and so forth. You can see all the frequencies you got hit. So, let's see here. Chris still has his flip phone, still brings it out for laughs. Yeah. One of the guys that had got mad because he was calling his wife on the phone and we were all listening to him on the scanner. Because he had one of the last analog cell phones that we could do that. And he was like, "Stop listening to me, you guys!" And we'd be turning up the scanners and hear the squeal coming through his phone. And oh yeah, he got torqued off. Let's see here. Back in the day, cell phones were on the 800 channels. Yeah, you could, like I say, you could do that. It was relatively simple to listen to cell phones in the days. Nowadays, you can't, and that's a question we get all the time. So Alicia used to listen to baby monitors on 49 megahertz.
I don't know why I would want to hear the baby crying.
I would scan through the band and just so I could find them,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like an eavesdropping device for in the house, so you could hear conversations. But
yeah,
for the most part, it's going to be relatively quiet, and you're going to hear. Wah!
Yeah. Well, the thing is people forget they have them on, and they're talking. And sometimes you can hear stuff going on in the next room, which might be more interesting. And then the thing that
yes.
And then the thing that came out after that were the video baby monitors.
Yeah.
And do you remember the old ICOM R3 scanners?
Oh no, you could see the video.
They had the video display on them, and you could see the video on those things. And you could walk around the neighborhood and see, they could use it for security cameras. They use it for baby monitors and all kinds of stuff. And, those were great. And you never know what you'd find with those things. Thank you for buying the hat, Dave. We appreciate that. So my 746 also has got a dimple on the VFO knob. Yeah, you're right. It does. I forgot about that. So it's a 746 in the radio, or in the radio rack there. Chris says there's still some of those 49 megahertz baby monitors out there. The babies that were first listened to on those are in the 30s by now. Yeah, and they probably got them from their parents. Their parents said, "Oh, hey, I got this baby monitor up in the attic. You can use it."
Yeah. Why do you need to spend the money? Use this.
Yeah. there was a when I had my apartment when I was in, oh gosh, I must have been, I don't know, 21, 22 with my apartment. And the girls in the apartment directly below us were friends of ours. And they had a cordless phone that something was wrong with it because basically it was transmitting all the time. And oh yeah, we liked them, so we told them to get rid of that phone because anybody could hear what was going on there. So
yeah.
So there's some of those phones they would do that. So so Alicia wants to know if she can submit some train photos for our train show.
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually drop an email to real easy email address. It's trainaficionado@gmail.com is where you can send those photos directly. That's trainaficionado@gmail.com. And then all we ask of you is to include the photos and a brief description, just so we can let people know where it was taken and if there's anything unique or particular to the location that you're shooting. We love to know that as well. I mean, that's always a key thing. And of course, that'll help educate some rail fans that may be visiting your area where you typically go rail fanning. It'll add something to their list of spots to be able to go rail fan. So if you're able to identify the location, we can put up the photo. Then I can also put up a map of where it is and put a pin on it so people can see, oh, that's where that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And my problem is I just got these 10,000 digital images back on my thumb drive. So I set this huge box.
That's the thumb drive?
That's the thumb drive that they sent.
and
there were
I hope you made a copy.
I did. There were 9,994, and if I lose it, I can call them and they'll send me a new one for $12. But there are 9,994 images on this.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, for $12.
I got a big huge box down there with all my pictures. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the box of pictures. My wife is telling me, get rid of them. You got them on the picture. I don't want to. I don't want to get rid of them. You know how much money I got invested in all those slides?
Yeah, now you've got all that money invested in the thumb drive too.
$2,800 I paid for this thumb drive.
Oh boy!
All right, so Ron writes that you guys must have people calling all the time where the fix is they did push in and twist the BNC connector. Yes. People don't realize that they actually have to push the antenna on the radio. We get that a lot. Oh, you're supposed to put the antenna on the radio? Well, yeah.
I've heard that.
Way. Yeah, and they don't know how the BNC connector works. You got to kind of push it in and turn it until it clicks. And, so that's, and they do that. So all of a sudden, oh, my God, it works.
Yeah, I mean, the antenna is definitely a key component to monitoring monitoring your things.
So Doug was a firefighter, and he said he used to ride around in the fire truck at night listening to baby monitors. Yeah. Well, I gotta admit, I did the same thing. When I was driving around the streets at the police department where I worked at, it was a really slow midnight shift most of the time, and you had to do something to stay awake. So I turn on the scanner and put on 49 megahertz and just drive around until I find something. And say, oh, cool, I found one, and go on to the next one.
I mean, when this was in its heyday, I was a kid, so I discovered it, and I started, I was hearing, the scuttlebutt from the neighbors, cordless phones, there was, I guess I won't really give away anything. There was a neighbor that
statute of limitations is passed.
There was a neighbor across the street. He was a little older than me. I was probably a teenager at that point. Mm-hmm. He was already driving, and so his father calls the house, and I won't say the name to protect the innocent. Hey, I noticed when I went to work this morning that the stop sign was torn down. Did you hit that stop sign?
when I was about 10 or 11 years old was when they came out with the first cordless phones.
Yeah.
And these worked, the handset transmitted on 49 megahertz and received on like 1.7 megahertz, just above the AM broadcast band. And back then, we would ride around with those things on our bike, trying to get a dial tone. And then, and they would work. You'd ride around the bike around the neighborhood until you found a dial tone, and chances are there was somebody within a mile or two of the house where you could, do that. And then we'd pick up and dial my home number, and my mom would pick up the phone and say, "Hi, Mom. Where are you calling from?" "I'm from my cordless phone," and she had no clue how we were doing that. Oh, the things you do when you're 10 years old.
At least you weren't calling 900 numbers on the.
They didn't have that. There was no such thing back then, and even so, when you're 10 years old, I wouldn't know what a 900 number is. That the 10-year-olds these days would, but back then,
back then
things were a lot more innocent back then. So there used to be Allied Radio. So back in the 60s, I think it was, there was Allied Radio, and there were a few in the Chicago area and a couple of others. And eventually they were bought out by Radio Shack, or there was some sort of a sister, because then they became Allied Radio Shack, and they merged in together. But yeah, I remember an Allied Radio, and then there was Olson Electronics, was another nationwide chain, much smaller than Radio Shack, but they were huge. The stores themselves were big. They were like the micro center of the radio day back then. So, let's see, Spectronics in Oak Park. Yeah, absolutely. Spectronics was a neat shop. Oak Park, Illinois, suburban Chicago, is right off the Eisenhower Expressway, and they sold used Motorola radios, and it was the place to go if you were into Motorola radios. They also sold some other, ICOM and ham stuff, but their main thing was used Motorola radios, and kind of a wholesale resale shop for communications gear. Fantastic place. I'd spend hours in that place going through all the stuff there. So Dave uses keypad lockout on his base scanners. It's great to prevent the great-granddaughter from changing the settings. We get that call a lot. My grandson was playing my radio, and now it doesn't work. So I got to, we got to walk them through turning the stuff back on that the kids turned off.
Yeah, or they turned things on that weren't on. I mean, service searches and random things, close call, weather alerts. I mean, you can get into a lot of trouble, especially in the Uniden radios where it has a lot of function plus another button will turn on some random stuff.
Yeah. Chris said that the scanner store in Anaheim was called the Newsroom. It was awesome. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name. Like I say, it's been 20-some years since I've been there, and that was an awesome store. And I like back then, the LA area was the scanner hotspot, and so that one had kind of a nationwide reputation of being like the scanner store to go to. So Lincoln writes, the Mud Shack in San Diego is closed and the owner's on the run. Oh, I don't know the backstory behind that one.
The Mud Shack.
San Diego was also well known as the home of Bill Cheek. He lived out in the desert in the San Diego area, if I recall correctly. Yeah, and Bob writes, if you were a police officer, how many times do you remember bumping the radio on and off with your leather jacket? Yeah, up north we did that all the time. And I was real skinny at the time, so it really wasn't that big of an issue for me then. Nowadays, with my increased girth, that would probably be more of an issue. But back then I was real thin, so I didn't have that much of a problem. But when that became an issue, a lot of times in wintertime, I would take the radio off my belt and put it on the inside pocket of my leather jacket. And number one, it kept the radio warmer, and
kept you warm
we had
too.
Battery. Well, no, I did mostly because to keep the battery warm, the battery would last longer.
Yeah.
If I'm working an 8-hour shift with an HT 1000, that battery, if it's 20 below zero, that battery would only last about 2 or 3 hours. If I put it on the inside pocket of the jacket, it would last me the whole day. Let's see here. Steve knew some of the people from Durham Radio. So he used to get some reward for the deep discounts. So he obviously spent a lot of time, a lot of money in Durham Radio. That was a pretty good shop. I enjoyed going there several times that I was there. Let's see here. So Lincoln uses a hairband on his cup call so the radio doesn't slip up and fall. So, yeah, some radios are held down there tighter. The 436 works in there ideally. Just take the belt clip off. It really is ideal. It's perfectly sized for this. The SDS 100 will work on it. It works better with the small battery, but even the large battery will work on there. If you've got a 325 or a 125, take off the belt clip, and that'll hold it into the holder much better. It'll hold with the belt clip on there, but it works better if you take the belt clip off. And one trick, if you take the belt clip off, put the screws back into the radio so you don't lose them. And it obviously works for the unification as well.
Yeah, with the belt clip on. Go figure.
Yeah, there you go. So 46.61, 46.63. Yeah, those are the days. Back in the cordless phones, baby monitors, wireless intercoms, all kinds of things use those 49 megahertz frequency. You can buy little walkie-talkies on those too back in the day. Yeah, and then the next one down, 870.03 and 870.06 and 870.09. Yep, those were the days too. You recognize those frequencies? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't work anymore. Even though they still use those frequencies, they are not used for they're not used for cellular phones anymore. At least they're still used for cellular phones. They just don't. You just can't hear them on a scanner anymore. So Randy had a scanner dedicated to his nosy neighbor's cordless phone that kept on calling the city complaining on the neighbors.
Oh, I had that too. I had a portable scanner that was dedicated to that, and there was one of the mothers of the kids that I went to school with, and she used to say, you know, mm-hmm. So many times. I wish I had $1 every time she said, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids would always be getting in trouble. She'd be talking about her oldest, and she'd be talking about her boy, and then then one of the daughters was, pregnant every time you turned around. It was like a soap opera.
It was a soap opera, yeah.
She wished one of the lines that she said on the phone, I wish I married a richer man.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm rich, Well, I'm rich, but I'm not rich. So we have a question about the through the glass antennas. He's got one of our listeners has got one on his pickup truck, and it works great. I'm not a big fan of through the glass antennas. They work fine for local stuff, but they're not that great for distant. So they're easy to install because it's basically two pieces of double stick tape on either side of the window, and they're capacitively coupled. So you have the little receiver on the one side connected to your coax, and the antenna goes on the other side. And they work fine for some stuff, and they, for local stuff, but they're not going to be that efficient as a wired antenna. We sell one of those. I usually try to discourage people from buying it unless they're listening to just local stuff. The old cellular antennas were capacitively coupled, and they worked fine for that because they were relatively low power and, you had coverage all over the place. But the other thing you got to be careful about with these through the glass antennas is if you've got one of those windows with the metallic sheathing inside it. Some of the older Ford radios or Ford cars had that copper colored windshield. They don't work very well with that. And you got to make sure you have a lot of clearance between the antenna and any of the wired embedded in the windows. So if you got a AM/FM antenna embedded in that window, or you've got the defroster, electronic defroster. So just remember those things when you use those. Lafayette Radio. Yeah, that was another chain very similar to Olson back in the day. It was a competitor for Radio Shack. We had a couple Lafayettes in the Midwest. I think we had one in like Hoffman Estates or Schaumburg or something like that. Newsroom, a great name for a scanner shop, absolutely. And that was great. And Alicia writes that the cordless phones these days use 4.6 and 5.8 gigahertz. Yep, you're absolutely right. Any of the VTech phones or DTech, I think is the technology that they use on that, DTech. And I think those are all 5.8 gigahertz phones. And the last one is, remember the Radio Shack HTX 202. That was their 2-meter radio, which I think was actually made for Radio Shack by ICOM, if I recall correctly. Because I know the accessories worked back and forth. But that had a little thumb screws at the top, or thumb controls at the top that you could change the frequency on. So that's we have reached the end of our romper room segment.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll cover some of the closing slides. If anybody has any last-minute questions, certainly post them in the comments. We'll be happy to get to those before we wrap things up. Just so you know, as for the number of hats sold right now, we're at number 5 hats. So we're 45 away from hitting our goal. So help us reach our goal of 50. By Friday, December the 4th is when we have to hit 50. So help us reach that goal. Support the scanner guys and take a look at the hat right here on the screen right now. It's available in black and a gray color, and it's one size fits all. As the expandable section in the back. You can order that through our website, thescannerguys.weebly.com. That's thescannerguys.weebly.com. Order it right through our website, and we'll be shipping out those shortly after, once we close this production run. So help support the Scanner Guys. Also, we want to remind you that next week's broadcast is Wednesday, December the 2nd. GPS scanning, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in for GPS scanning. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button on the Scanner Guys YouTube account. Train Aficionado Live is coming up next month, the first Monday of the month, December the 7th. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Subscribe there. We're going to look at some of Rich's thousands of slides. We're not going to do it in one night. It'll be a few of them. We don't want to we'll be on for 8 hours if we go through all those slides. It'll take us quite a long time. So we're going to look at a few of them, each broadcast. So we're not going to. Right. I mean, we would have to have intermissions, so people could go use the restroom and also follow, like, and subscribe to the Train Aficionado social media: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. If you go to trainaficionado.com. You can check out my blog as well and some of the other stuff that's going on there. So make sure you do that. And we can't forget, last but not least, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master, our sponsor for tonight's show, on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Scanner Master Co. And then the Scanner Guys. We're across all the social media platforms as well. As you can see us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And make sure you follow and like us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well. So we're looking forward to having everybody back next week Same time, same place, right here. Make sure you stay safe out there. I know,
Yeah.
a lot of people are traveling. There's going to be some COVID super spreaders more than likely.
Yeah.
Just make sure that I know we're all sick of wearing a mask and having to use hand sanitizer all the time, but just keep doing it because you know
Yeah.
what? A lot of people out there are just, there's some people out there that's just not responsible and they're touching things. And, the other thing that I was talking to my wife about was with everybody wearing masks and taking time washing their hands, using hand sanitizer, we're not going to have, if everybody does what they're supposed to do, it's going to reduce down the amount of the regular flu as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're not, it's preventing spreading those germs
Yeah.
as well.
And remember, the mask isn't to protect you. Wearing a mask isn't meant to protect you. It's to protect the guys around you, the people around you. So just shut up and wear the darn mask.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we
do
all
have a couple of last. Go ahead.
I mean, if we all do our part, it could help somebody from getting this awful disease. This
Absolutely.
sickness.
Yeah, I got 2 neighbors on my block that both have it now, and they are not happy campers. So, couple last minute questions that popped up here in comments. Ron remembers tuning into the fast food drive-through windows. A lot of those nowadays are on spectrum or higher frequencies, but there's still occasional low band, high band in UHF. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Remember, 35.02 used to be the McDonald's frequency.
Oh wow.
And then there's the Lafayette's became Radio Shacks. Chris asks whether the 4-port power supply will work on the Radio Shack scanner.
Oh no, because they got a different type of connection on there.
Yeah.
So it's strictly Uniden, and of course the multicoupler. Thank goodness.
Yeah, the Stridsberg. Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. And then Alicia Wright asks what's on the brim of our hat.
Oh, that's just a sticker.
Yeah, it comes off.
It comes off.
Yeah, that's the hot hat. That it's not meant to have that.
Yeah, it's the classic fit, I guess, is what it says on there. I'm looking at it on another screen, but yeah, that's just a sticker. It just comes off.
Yeah, we got a couple show suggestions that we'll put on our list, and Railfan news. Pan Am Railways has apparently been bought by the Canadian National. I did not know that. That was in your old neighborhood.
Yeah. So is that official? Because they rumored.
Dale.
Well, they rumored, Dale, that that CSX, bought them, and then Norfolk Southern said, "Whoa, wait a minute," and now
no, it looks like CN. So we'll have to check on that, and if we get some confirmation one way or the other, we'll let you know.
That's interesting. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if CN does it. I mean, they bought the Wisconsin Central, Illinois Central, Grand Trunk, Central Vermont, DMIR. They bought all these EJ&E.
Yeah, especially. I mean, that's a benefit to them because they're bordering, Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lot of, that's a pretty decent amount of track there.
And we're also going to talk about the CN Heritage units too. So we'll put that.
That's going to be definitely in our news segment of the Train Aficionado live show.
Absolutely. So be safe, and be happy, and spend a lot of time playing with the scanners. And we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll definitely see you guys next week. Same channel, live here. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for joining us the day before Thanksgiving. We appreciate it. We had a big audience tonight.
Sure did. Bye, guys.
Good night. Bye-bye.